Hello and welcome to another episode of Between the Covers. My name is Daniela Bleckner. I am an author, book journey mentor, and my camera's going a little bit blurry. I'm not sure why. So I'm an author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Streams Publishing. We provide bespoke publishing and mentoring services to authors with powerful messages and stories to share with the world. On the bookshelf behind me here are just some of the 200 plus books that we've published over the last 7 years. I'm absolutely passionate about providing a platform for unseen, unheard authors so that they can have their voices heard and stories shared, so they can elevate, inspire, entertain, empower for generations to come. So what is this show about and why is it called Between the Covers? This show is about getting up close and personal in between the covers of what it takes to actually create a book. It's about learning and understanding what it is like for the author to go on that book journey. I also interview experts in the industry as well. So last week I interviewed Tunji Olajimi, who is running an event on the 16th, Saturday the 16th of September, called Publish and Profit Authorpreneur Live. I'll be speaking at that event too, and he dropped some real nuggets about what it takes to not just be an author, but to actually run a business as an author, i.e. authorpreneur. So who do I have today, I hear you ask? Well, before I introduce my awesome and amazing guest, I want you to come into the live stream, say hello, tap the screen, show us some love, let us know where you're watching from. And again, if you find this of worth and of value, please do share this out, especially if you know any aspiring authors in your network. I am also, if you're on Facebook only, you can also send something called stars, which is money, basically stars in the form of money. It's something new that I've set up, but stars mean that it helps me to earn money to make this content. It's not free to create this content. I've got to pay for the platform, pay for the marketing, pay to create the flyers. So any help would be absolutely amazing. So you can do that via Facebook. Just click on the star and that would be great. If you would like to see more of this content, click on the notification bell, which is up there or down there. I've got to figure it out depending where you're watching. And you can be alerted as to when we are going live next. So hello there to Sonia Jenkins, who is watching in Florida. Hello there from Florida. Thank you so much for coming into the live stream. So now it is time. Oh, you're on your holes. Amazing. Holiday. I need one of those. So I'm going to introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Helen Snape, who has a very busy week this week. She's been working with us publishing a fantastic book called Drop the Fake Smile, The Recovering People Pleaser's Guide to Self-Love, Boundaries and Healthy Relationships. Helen is a healthy relationships coach, and she's going to drop some nuggets today. And if you're new to the show, this is a very interactive show. So if you have any questions, please throw those questions up and engage in the conversation. So please, let's see some hearts for Helen, please. Hello there, Helen. How are you doing?
Hi, Danny. I'm well. I'm kind of hot.
It's very hot.
Oh my God, it's hot. But yeah, I'm excited about having this conversation. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so you're actually launching on the 9th of September, which is this Saturday. Very excited. First of all, before we talk about your book, how do you feel now you're so close to the end of this process?
I think a whole range of emotions, really. Like sometimes I'm feeling overwhelmed because there's so much going on and there's been all the preparation, but also really excited. I feel like a little bit like a pregnant mother, because I'm giving birth to my book and it's going to go out into the world and people are going to read it, and that's kind of scary but also really exciting.
Amazing. Oh, I'm so pleased you've worked so hard. So your book is called Drop the Fake Smile. Just give us a sense of what is your book about and what's your inspiration behind writing the book?
Well, I think the subtitle kind of says it all. So the subtitle is The Recovering People Pleaser's Guide to Self-Love, Boundaries, and Healthy Relationships. So that is essentially what you're going to find in it. It's about how some of us go around with that fake smile and we pretend that everything's fine and we agree to do things and then we regret it. But we keep doing it. Like we're just stuck in this pattern of doing it. And we can't seem to stop ourselves. And then we end up like really like burnt out and we're overcommitted. And so that this book is about how to start to stop doing that.
And if you're watching now, or if you're watching on the replay and you resonate with anything that Helen's saying, perhaps you are a people pleaser, perhaps you are burnt out because you're constantly saying yes to things. And when I read your book, I could really relate to a lot of things there in my past, not anymore. And then you speak about boundaries, and boundaries, it can be quite a scary thing for some people, but people who don't know what boundaries are at all, tell us what are boundaries and why are they important?
Yeah. So when you think of like a map with different countries on it, around each country is a border. And essentially boundaries are your borders, except that they happen to be invisible. So there are lots of different kinds of boundaries that we can talk about, but some of the most kind of obvious ones to get to grips with are things like your time boundaries, like, you know, like when you start and finish work, like whether you take the breaks. There's your physical boundaries. So like who you let into your personal space, who you let into your home, who you feel comfortable hugging, for example. There are your mental boundaries. So being able to have differences of opinion with other people, being able to hold on to your own view when others disagree. There's your emotional boundaries, which is about you being able to hold on to your own feelings and let other people have theirs. And finally, like there's your spiritual boundaries. So being able to know what your own values are, trusting your own intuition rather than kind of other people telling you like how to guide your life.
Thank you so much. So boundaries isn't just a one-dimensional thing. There's so many different aspects of boundaries. Do you think that boundaries is something that's taught to us? And why do you think so many people struggle with, you know, setting boundaries for themselves and for others?
Yeah, well, boundaries aren't taught to us. Like this is it. They should be taught in school. So what happens instead is, you know, we absorb from our caregivers and other people that we grow up with, whatever kind of the boundary dynamic is in our family and like in our community. So we're not like formally taught it, but we absorb like what is kind of normal for our family. And so, you know, those might be healthy boundaries, but they also might be weak boundaries or rigid boundaries, or a real mixture. So, but the great thing is like that we can learn how to have healthy boundaries, even if we didn't see them growing up or if we've had bad experiences. And your second question, was it about how do you identify the boundaries?
So the first one, why do you think so many people struggle with creating or setting boundaries for themselves?
Yes. Yeah. For all sorts of reasons. For a start, like we maybe don't even know what boundaries are. Like I didn't know what they were until I kind of discovered the language about them about 8 years ago. So we don't know what they are. So you know, it's very hard to verbalize or to understand something when you don't have the language for it, actually. So we don't know what they are. We don't know what our own boundaries are. And sometimes that's because we don't know ourselves well enough. So we don't even know what it is that we're trying to protect. Sometimes it's that we maybe know, but we don't know how to communicate our boundaries. and then in effect, well, they may as well be non-existent, because when we're wanting to have boundaries, then it's often in relation to other people. And if we can't verbalize them, then no one else is going to know that those boundaries exist.
Yeah. It's a really key point that you made, is like, first of all, being able to identify our boundaries for ourselves and the importance of them before we can even, allow other people to see the relevance or even acknowledge them. I know you talk a little bit about your personal story in the book. Can you just share a bit of your story in terms of when you realized that you're on this people-pleasing path, and what it was that made you say, right, I need to, change and create a bit of a transformation here?
Yeah. Oh, how long have you got, Danny? Essentially, I grew up as the good girl. I loved making my parents happy, and I didn't like to upset anyone. I would keep quiet. I did well at school, didn't ask too many questions, and I thought that this was like how you get ahead in life. Turns out it's not so much. And then at work, I wanted to impress, and I kept saying yes to doing things all the time, and I didn't take the breaks. And as you can imagine, the result was that I gradually burnt out at work. And so at work, it wasn't I didn't really recognize what was going on, but like, I couldn't say no. So my body was beginning to say no for me.
Right.
Yeah. But, it wasn't just affecting me at work. It was affecting my personal relationships too. So I won't go into like the gory details, but I was in a very toxic and unhealthy marriage for a long time. And I was a real giver in that relationship, and my husband was a real taker, but we kind of fit together in a horrible kind of way,
like magnets in a way, isn't it? You've got one positive, one negative, and they have to not repel, the opposite attract.
Attract. And it wasn't until my mother got diagnosed with a cancer, with myeloma, that I really kind of had a bit of a wake-up call. I realized that how short life can be, how precious it is, and wondered what on earth I was doing with mine. And I just began to feel like I couldn't cope with how I was living life. I had to seek help, and I had to kind of admit that my way of doing life really wasn't working out very well. Even though from the outside it looked great, I was married, we owned our own home, I had a successful job, but like inside I was crumbling and falling apart. So really that was my big wake-up call, to go and get help. And that's what started this journey of self-discovery. And gradually unpicking these very well ingrained people-pleasing patterns.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's not easy to share personal stories as well, and you've really shown that kind of pattern, throughout from childhood. And I think a lot, especially girls, we have it drummed in to be this good girl, to not ask questions, not to rebel, to please, and that is, as you said, that can become a repeated pattern. And it sounds like you said something that struck me: when we don't listen to ourselves, our body will tell us somehow, whether it's through burnout or a huge physical event. So I can see how that pattern and how that journey went for you. Somebody has a question here. Sonia is asking, do you think the attachment styles impact your ability to develop positive, healthy boundaries? Great question.
That is a good
people who don't know, could you just sort of give a recap on what the different attachment styles are? Oh, before we have that, we've got a lovely comment from Sonia. She says, "Thanks for being brave, Helen."
Oh, bless you. Yeah. So attachment styles, they're basically like are how we attach to other people in our lives, and we form like maybe our main attachment style growing up. So as children, typically you hear about people that are maybe become securely attached or anxiously attached or become avoidant. There's more kind of complicated versions, and of course it's not always that you're always the same. You can be different with different people. But attachment styles and boundaries are very much linked. As I say, like it's never like a straightforward thing, but generally speaking, those that are anxiously attached, because they're so wanting the relationship to work, tend to have diffuse or weaker boundaries. So tend to be the ones that will say yes to things and maybe overcommit themselves and take on other people's problems and feelings as their own. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, those that are more like avoidant will tend to have more rigid those that are more avoidant in their attachment style will tend to have more rigid boundaries, and so they will more have a wall. And then if you're securely attached, then you're more likely to have those kind of healthy, flexible boundaries. But none of this is like fixed, right? We can move about in these spaces, like with different people we might show up in different ways.
Thank you. I want to finish the second part of that thing, but you said something, and we had an online workshop, online book launch yesterday, and you said something about you can have weaker boundaries, but being around somebody who has strong and definitive boundaries can create a sense of security and comfort, and it helps you create firmer boundaries yourself. I mean, can you speak to that a little bit more? And I think there's a second part of Sonia's question there as well.
Yeah. So I guess it's like when if you're around people that are like emotionally healthy, which includes having healthy boundaries, then not only are they kind of like a helpful kind of role model, but they are giving you that experience of healthy boundaries, and they're giving you the experience of being in a relationship where there are boundaries. Because when you're a people pleaser, you're worried that if you start setting boundaries, then like everyone's going to leave you. Basically, and people with healthy boundaries like know that doesn't happen with them anyway. They're going to welcome your boundaries. So it's super helpful to have people that like you're going to be able to be in relationship with them. They're able to have their boundaries and you're able to have yours, and you're able to like coexist, and it works. Yeah.
It's really interesting you say that as well, because working with young people, boundaries has been a huge thing. And I work with young people who are very vulnerable. They're not used to boundaries, and it's difficult. And one thing I've learned is the more boundaries you are and clear and definitive, it actually makes them feel safe. Yeah. And even though at the beginning, they might absolutely hate it, if you continue with the same boundaries, they know that it's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. I've had so many kids say, "You're firm but fair, but I feel safe because I know where I am." It's the first time somebody's kind of given that parameter, and I think it's such an important thing that we don't learn there. So I think it's so important.
Yeah, because if you agree to something when you don't want to do it, then the other person never knows where they stand with you. really. Whereas if you're very clear about like, this is okay for me, but like this isn't, then they know, like they know they can push against it, and you're still going to be the same, and you're still going to be solid. And yeah, it's incredibly helpful. So good job, Danny.
I try. Sonia says as well that there's a second part to that. She says, do you think attachment styles impact your ability to develop healthy boundaries? So when you touch on the fact that, you know, it's flexible, you can have like an anxious or avoidant attachment style, or anxious avoidant, I think there is. How can we then start to develop healthy, positive boundaries? And would you say that one impacts the other more or less?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like chicken and the egg, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, I think your attachment style does impact the kind of the default kind of boundaries that you tend to go for. Like I said before, you know, so anxiously attached tends to be more the weak and diffuse boundaries, and those that are more avoidant tend to have the more rigid boundaries. But you know, there's a lot of nuance in there that you know we haven't really got the time and space to go into. Yeah.
I'm going to go to the second half, but Sonia also says, I'm concerned that in trying to create healthy boundaries in working with children, so many different professionals come into their life which counteracts this. What's your view? So, I mean, you might have, for example, one teacher who's got, you know, very strong and definitive boundaries. I don't know if you, I'm not going into scenarios, but, you know, strong and definitive boundaries, and other teachers who are kind of anything goes, or maybe an external partner, you know, might come in and do something completely different. Is this counteracting, or is it, what's your view? It's a difficult one.
It is. I suppose what's coming up for me is that you know we can't control who those children are going to come into contact with in their life, and we can't control how other people interact with them. So let's focus on what we can control, and that's our own behavior. Like if you can be that person for them that has healthy boundaries, and can set those kind of solid guide rails, like they're gonna notice. Like, you know, they might not say anything, but you're giving them that experience, and it's incredibly valuable. Like you just need, you know, one or two, you know, emotionally healthy adults to give you that experience, and it's like you then, you know, like something in you knows, like, yeah, I want more of that.
It's a great answer. Thank you. So how can we then start to develop better boundaries and become less of a people pleaser, as an ex-people pleaser?
Yeah. So developing better boundaries is definitely a journey. It starts with self-discovery, because when you've been a people pleaser for a long time, you're used to focusing on what everybody else wants and what they feel and what they need. And so you don't know yourself, and you don't know what it is that you need to protect. So it's turning that attention that you give to everyone else back to yourself, and going on a journey of self-discovery to figure out like what actually is important to you. Like, what is it that you love? What lights you up? Like, what is it that you hate? Discovering all of these things and just like learning about yourself will then help you to know actually like what are the limits that I now need to set, because I know that this is important to me, or this really matters to me. So self-discovery, then also letting yourself actually feel your feelings. Because again, you know, as people pleasers, we're so tuned into how everybody else is feeling. Like we're just so on the alert for that we ignore what we feel, like we don't think it matters, which is kind of sad. So we need to slow down and stop and ask ourselves, actually, like, how is this making me feel? Because, you know, when we can notice how we're feeling about things, then we're going to notice, again, like maybe when a boundary has been crossed for us. Because if we never notice how we feel, then we're not going to notice if something's crossed a boundary.
Yeah. So it's that sense of turning that attention, like you say, inwards, and having a deep sense of self-awareness and self-love, which is something that you talk about in the book. One thing that I love about this book is that it's not just a book, you know, it's separated into three different parts. You've got lots of exercises and reflections in here, which is just a great way for people to engage. And I think it's like powerful when you're writing things down, you're making a commitment, and you can read a book and remember a certain percentage of it, but when you're actually engaging and writing, you're making that commitment to really engage in the book, and you can go back and read over it and ingrain, I think, those words, those exercises into your brain. So how do you give us an example of one exercise, and just tell us a little bit, how do you work with people? What services do you offer, and who do you work with?
Yeah. So one of the exercises in the book that I talk about is about that tuning into your feelings, where I recommend that at least 3 times a day you ask yourself these 2 questions. How am I feeling right now? And what do I need to do to take care of myself right now? It sounds so simple, and yet how many of us actually do it? and yet, you know, as a recovering people pleaser, it's definitely something you want to be doing, to check in with yourself regularly. And the way I work with people is it's a very holistic approach. So it's either one-to-one coaching or group coaching. I've also got an online program, Better Boundaries for Better Relationships. But it's very holistic, because people-pleasing patterns that we get stuck in, they affect like our whole system, right? So yes, like we do want to look at our recurring thoughts and those like limiting beliefs, like the mental stuff. And yes, we do want to tackle those, but we also want to get in touch with our body, which we've probably been busy ignoring and neglecting, and also our emotions. And quite often it can be easy to say, oh, like, how am I feeling, and to go to our minds, but really we need to slow down and see what our bodies are telling us about how we feel. So I work in a somatic way as well with people, to help them tune into what their body is telling them, because yes, you know, our brain and our mind has a lot of information, but actually our whole mind body system can tell us too. And I essentially, I work with people on self-discovery, that mind-body connection, inner child work, helping them identify, communicate, and enforce their boundaries, and on communicating strongly. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And people can contact you at, is it helensnape.com?
It is indeed. Yeah.
There you go. Look, there you go. I can't speak. www.helensnape.com. So all the information about your services that you offer, where to get the book. I'll drop that in there, but I think that might be on your website as well. But most importantly, helensnape.com. Find out about her awesome and amazing services there. I wish I could speak with you. We can carry on, but I think this is something that we can do this in like 3 whole parts, because there's so much to touch on. I think we've only touched the surface. Also, to get a copy of Helen's book, it is available at all good retailers. But if you'd like to have a signed copy of the book, you can get it from, it's in the link, the Conscious Dreams Bookshop. The link, I'm not going to read all of that out. The link is in the comments. And you can, again, get it from all good retailers. But if you want a signed copy, you can get it from the shop. Helen, would you like to share some of your book with us?
Ooh. Oh, yeah. If you twist my arm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry about that. I'll sort.
Okay, I will do a short reading from fairly near the beginning of the book, and it's a section called A Little Bit About Me. I was the ultimate people pleaser. I grew up being the good girl. I did as I was told. I got good grades in school, and I loved making other people happy. When I was very young, I wrote stories, sang, and drew for my parents. At school, I was badly bullied. I'm blind in one eye, and that drew the attention of some girls who were on a power trip. No matter what I did or who I told, the bullying continued. I learnt I was helpless and that it was best to be as invisible as possible. The bullying made it hard for me to have time with friends, and I was so desperate to be with them, any chance I got, I would agree to do whatever they were doing. I learnt to be a chameleon, fitting in with whoever I was with. If I could make the other person happy, they might spend time with me and like me. However, when it came to boys, I was a rebel. I always seemed to pick boys my parents thoroughly disapproved of. I married straight after university to the first man who gave me the attention I craved. It was a bad choice, but I didn't know any better. He wanted my life to revolve around his needs and wants, and got cross when it didn't. I thought I was being so unselfish, putting him first, but no matter how hard I tried, it was never good enough for him. So I tried harder and harder. I was miserable and empty, but I ignored that. The turning point came when my mother was diagnosed with myeloma, an incurable cancer that attacks the bone marrow throughout the body. I realized how short life was, how precious it was. And finally, a quiet voice inside of me said, "Enough is enough. You deserve better." And so began my journey of coming back to myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you're watching now, please do just send Helen some love and just give us some comments. What did you think of that extract? And thank you for sharing that. That was quite a personal part of it. And I think that kind of underpins what we spoke about right at the beginning, you know, why you wrote this and why this is important to you. And it seems like your journey has kind of built you up to this point. And not everybody identifies these things in themselves. Sometimes we just go on throughout our life, repeating patterns and thinking it's everything else out there and not actually looking at what is, you know, it's empowering, isn't it? What is it within us that is creating this repeated pattern? Then we can actually start to make change. And I think, you know, the fact that number one, not only have you identified this, number two, you're actually making a difference in your life. You've transformed your life, but you've published a book and you're using it to help others. I think that's absolutely incredible. And people who are watching are agreeing. Selena Thompson says, very powerful words. Thank you, Selena. Sonia says, lovely extract. I'll definitely be getting the book. Amazing. So the copy, if you just go to the link in the, I'm pointing up to the sky, but it's in the post. I've also put it in the chat. So you go ahead and buy a copy of the book. I've got some other, I can't see everyone who's here, but I can see on my phone who's watching. Hello, Victor. Hello, Jeanette. Hello, Zara. Hello, Lucille. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions for Helen, please do throw those questions up because we've got about 5 minutes left and then we've got to head over to Instagram. So, Helen, I mean, I want you to, obviously people need to get the book. What 3 very short tips would you give to somebody who is a people pleaser and they're just starting to identify that they're a people pleaser and it's becoming a real problem in their life?
My first tip is, well, first of all, congratulations for identifying that you've been in this pattern, because not everyone does. My first tip, actually, that I would say is be kind to yourself. Like, because especially like at the beginning of your journey out of people pleasing, like it's hard and you kind of wonder like how you can get out of it, and we're often very hard on ourselves. So please be kind to yourself. Know that it's a journey. It's not like something that you just fix overnight. If there was a magic pill, I'd be selling it. So be kind to yourself. Secondly, master the pause. So when somebody asks you to do something, see if you can catch yourself before you say yes, and instead breathe, pause, so that you give yourself the chance of actually considering your response and what you want it to be. Like, have a pause, and maybe even delay replying. Like, say you've got to go and check your calendar or something. That's
Can I
a good one.
Add to that? It's really powerful, because definitely when I was a lot younger, early 20s, I mean, I thought I could do everything and, be there for everyone, do that. If someone called me, I'll be up, I'll stop what I'm doing, and I'm over there. I would have to be in like 10 different places at 10. And I just remember saying yes to everything, because in your heart, you genuinely want to, because like you said, you want to make people happy. You want to help people. I had this real desire to help people, and also just to be part of everything all the time. And I didn't take that pause. And then you realize when the time comes to actually be there, you start to either feel resentful or you're just too burnt out to do it. And when you get there, you just can't commit in the way that you can't offer that value that you want to, because you're just absolutely knackered. So I think that's a really good one, taking the pause, mastering the pause.
Yes. And the third one would be, at the end of each day, to consider like 3 things that you've done well. And the reason that I say this is because as a people pleaser, like, we're really used to looking to other people for validation. It's external validation that we're always looking for. And what we want to learn to do is to give that to ourselves. So one way to start doing this is, at the end of each day, write down at least 3 things that you can be pleased about yourself. They don't have to be big things. It can be, that you made your bed. It can be that you made yourself a healthy meal, or that you drank 6 glasses of water or 2 glasses of water, or whatever it is. But begin to like notice these things and make a note of them for yourself.
Thank you. So that's a great one. So number 1 was be kind to yourself. Number 2, master the pause. Number 3, consider 3 things you've done well at the end of the day. I think they're 3 amazing tips. And you have so many more tips in your book, Drop the Fake Smile. Look, we haven't even talked about the cover yet.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
We'll do another interview, won't we? So what's next for Helen Snape?
So what's next is going to be a program that I'm going to develop for those that want to go a bit deeper than the book. It's going to be a group program called Relationship, to help people to really embed what you're learning in the book, because sometimes we just want to take that step further, and to begin to embed things with the support of other people who are on the same journey. So that will be coming up next. Like once I've kind of got the book launch out of the way and celebrated and recovered. I
like that, recovered and paused. Excellent. See, Some people just keep going, wouldn't they? Right, book look, because you've done so many things. You know, you've been watching on Facebook. Obviously, we've worked with you publishing the book, but in terms of the promotion that you're doing, the media coverage you're getting, you've been on. Tell me, was it the Woking News?
Yeah, Woking News and Mail. Yeah,
you've had podcasts, not with Russell Kane, the Russell Kane, but with Russ Kane.
The amazing Russ Kane.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've got your book launch coming up on Saturday, haven't you?
I do. Yeah. So if anyone is local, please join me. It's going to be in the Lion's Heart Bookshop in Woking between 2 and 5 o'clock. Just drop in anytime.
In fact, I will pop the link there in the comments to your book launch. You don't have to necessarily get tickets, do you? Because it's a drop-in, but it's good to know, isn't it?
It is, and it's got all the details in that Eventbrite link. So so that if you forget any of it, then you've got that as a reference. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we'll pop that link in the comments when we get on the replay, when we get back to the interview. But we've got to hop over to Instagram. Any final last words for our viewers today?
Oh, well, if you're beginning to recognize that you've been people pleasing, again, be kind to yourself. Congratulations on identifying it. And I wish you all the best on your journey of recovery.
Thank you so much, Helen. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've loved working with you at Constant Streams Publishing, and we're really looking forward to seeing what you're going to be bringing out next after a pause. So if you're watching, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on the replay, please feel free to throw up your comments, say hello. We will get back to all of the comments. Join us for another episode of Between the Covers at 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST on Facebook, on YouTube, and on what's the other one, LinkedIn. But if you would like to be reminded of when we go live, just hit the bell, follow me on any of those platforms, hit the subscribe button, and you will get a notification. Who am I interviewing next week? I am interviewing the awesome, amazing Chloe Rayban. She's best known for her young adult novels, her wacky, humorous Justine novels, which have been shortlisted for the Carnegie Medal and twice for the Guardian Fiction Prize. She has also been published by Random House, HarperCollins, Hodder, Headline, and Bloomsbury, just to say a few. Not only that, she is a consultant at Jericho Writers, which I'm part of, and she actually reviewed my agent's submission pack. If you don't know what an agent's submission pack is, tune in tomorrow, having a rest, next Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT. Have an awesome evening. Bye, everyone.